Morning. I'm Erine. I've grown up in church, so I've always had an awareness of the Jesus who loves me and welcomes me as I am. But nearing the end of my time at school, and around when I moved to France last year, I became really aware that there was something I was missing. So then, once living in France, I kept going to church, mainly out of habit, since it's what I've always done on a Sunday, but I found it really hard to get stuck into a community. So then around Easter last year, I started reading the Bible, and I opened it at Matthew, and I was immediately struck by the Sermon on the Mount. I began to realise that I didn't know Jesus at all, and I'd been believing in a Jesus that wouldn't ask me to change and didn't care about the details of my life. And this Jesus would never disciple me or grow me or discipline me. He was just someone who might have died for me a long time ago. So I realised that this whole Christianity thing is a really big deal, and it involved giving up control and offering him my whole life. And as I kept reading the Bible, I realised other things, like how my happiness had been completely dependent on my circumstances. And yet what God was offering was an infallible, resilient, and it was resilient against all grief and suffering that I might face. So I knew that I couldn't get it wrong. So this sent me down a bit of a spiral where the more I found out about Jesus, the more I wanted to have faith so badly, but I couldn't put my trust in something or someone that I couldn't see and who I didn't know was real. So then someone told me that faith is a gift from God and I could just receive it. Which confused me even more. So around August, I set God a deadline, and I prayed a bunch for faith, and nothing had happened. So I said to God, okay, you have to reveal yourself to me in a way that will convince me by Christmas, or else I'll keep pursuing you, but I'm going to be so upset about it, and I'm probably going to be stuck in this doubt forever. So over time, I became increasingly nervous that I'd missed him showing himself, especially since I'd had a couple really spiritual dreams and stuff. And I was scared that I'd had a heart of stone and would never be convinced by anything. And near the end of the year, all the questions and doubts I had were really exhausting me, and praying at all felt pointless. So then when Christmas flew by and 2026 came in, I felt so disappointed and hopeless. And then I went on this student getaway in my church at uni, which they were doing before term started. But I'd really hoped that I would be a Christian for it. So I went in with no expectations at all. And then there was this worship session on the final night of the getaway, just after a talk on the Holy Spirit. And there was this really heavy atmosphere in the room of guys, God is going to move, and he's going to do stuff. And then one girl came over to me and asked if she could pray for me. And I said, yeah, of course. And I held out my hands like this. And she was praying, saying that she really felt like God was going to move and do something. And like I was going to have an encounter. And then she prayed for 5 minutes before she gave up. And I was left feeling even more disappointed than before. And then a little bit later, maybe 45 minutes or so, another girl went up to the microphone and she gave a prophetic word and said that maybe someone here hadn't met the Holy Spirit before. And immediately that really resonated with me. And I got up and I went over to ask her to pray for me. So I was holding my hands out like this again, and she prayed for a baptism in the Holy Spirit. And she prayed for windows to be opened. And at that moment, I felt something in me open up, and this golden, uncontrollable whoosh came over me, and it was like a wave, and I was so overwhelmed and in awe that I started crying. And I'd been reading the story of Mary, who sat at Jesus' feet and broke perfume over his feet, and he washed his feet with her hair. And I'd always been so baffled by that because feet are yucky, and she must have been so aware of his glory to want to do that. And that was the sort of love that I really wanted to have for him, but never felt like I could. So in that moment, as my friend was praying for me, I saw myself at his feet, And I had this really strange desire to want to wash his feet with my hair and to serve his church for the rest of my life. And so from then on, I knew that I loved him. And it was as though all the doubt that I had evaporated away from me. And his truth was written into my skin. And he is the truth, and he lives in me. And I know him in my bones. So I feel really blessed now, having told loads of people this and finding out how many people were praying for me. Thank you.